Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome. I think some people are still coming in from the waiting room, but we'll get started. My name is Annie Beharry, and I am the program manager at Service to School. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we begin, I'll tell you a little bit more about Service to School, share a few housekeeping items, and then introduce our speaker. So if you're not familiar, Service to School is a nonprofit with the goal of helping veterans and transitioning service members apply for admission at the best colleges and graduate schools that are possible for them. We offer mentorship and college counseling advice to thousands of college applicants, and we partner with 26 highly selective universities in a program that we call VetLink. We also host monthly webinars like this one, where you can learn more about admissions, financial aid, or hear from people like Hugh, who transitioned from the military to college. So again, thank you for coming to our webinar tonight. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. A recording of this presentation will be available to you in a few days. If you're having a hard time hearing us or seeing us, please refresh your browser by quitting and reopening it. There will be time for questions afterwards. I'll be manning the Q&A box throughout the presentation. So as questions come to you, feel free to ask them. I'll be saving the questions that are most applicable to everyone for the end. If you are asking a question, please make sure that it's as general as possible, so that way everyone can benefit from it. And if you have more questions, or if you have specific questions, I'm sure Marcee will share her contact information afterwards, and you can contact her directly. So I believe that's all the housekeeping stuff from my end. Now let me introduce you to Marcee Davis, who is our speaker tonight. Marcee is the current VA school certifying official at the University of California, Santa Barbara. She helps prepare transitioning military veterans for their next chapter in higher education. She is also a veteran herself, having served as an aviation electrician and plane captain in the Navy during her various deployments to the Middle East. In Marcee's current role, she counsels and helps prospective student veterans and military dependents navigate admission requirements and financial aid procedures. She is a strong advocate for veterans looking to use their state and federal benefits, while also fostering awareness of the veteran community and facilitating better access and understanding of those resources. So Marcee, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen so I can get into this. Okay. Awesome, great. Thanks for joining us. I'm happy to be here. I'm an ambassador for, and I have been for Service to School for a few years. I kind of focus on students that are in California that are looking to be undergrads. But I've used benefits myself, multiple different benefits, and have gone all the way to graduate school doing so. So through my trial and error and working in this field, not only my personal experience, but as an administrator of these benefits and working in Congress, working in higher ed, hopefully I can give you some things to look for, some guides, some tips, and hopefully you could take something away. So let's get into it. Military-related benefits, education benefits, financial aid tips, and information. Now, this is a very broad topic, so I'm going to try to, when I bring something up, I'm going to try to tell you why it's important, and so you can remember this going forward. But if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, my name is Marcee Davis. If you scan that little QR code, that kind of pops you up to where it's like a website, business card, but that's my contact information. I'm passionate about veteran military connected communities. I was a transfer student myself. I'm a first generation college student and graduate, veteran, like they said, and non-traditional, right? Non-traditional encompasses a lot of different things, but for me, I had dependents when I went back to school. So if I feel like if I could do that, anybody can, but kind of one of the stepping points is like knowing how to use your benefits, right? So in this kind of presentation, these are the kind of things I'm going to go over there in the next 45-ish minutes. So as mentioned, there's time for Q&A at the end of the chat. This is a basic overview. Know that even though we are addressing federal VA benefits, they're going to be applied differently depending on what type of benefits are offered at your state or institution. Know that there's several different types. Financial aid is very specific to the individual. No two financial aid awards will be the same, even when a student has the same VA benefits at the same university. So know that they're very specific. And hopefully after this overview, you will come away with a better understanding of how you can use your VA benefits, understand a bit more about how financial aid works, get an introduction into other types of aid that may be available to you in your state or university, and who to speak to, and also how to maximize the use of your military-related benefits while pursuing your goals in higher ed. So my focus is how military education benefits and financial aid kind of work together to reach your goals. And a lot of times when you're on campus, there's a two-pronged approach to support. There's programs, right? Things that can help support the student while they're on campus. And then there's funding. And I'm going to be focusing on the funding. So I say this a lot, right? Who's in charge? Who's obligated to explain your military education benefits to you and how they work with financial aid? Is it the VA, the state, the university? The answer is all three. Let's go back. For me, with particular emphasis on the college collecting the benefits, right? But the issue is that the VA and state don't always understand the financial aid process at every college, and very often the university that you're going to go to doesn't understand every single benefit due to ever-changing laws and policy, while also navigating a hugely bureaucratic system in higher ed. So it's not always a one-stop shop. It rarely ever is, right? You're going to need to get information from several different locations to kind of put this together. But hopefully I can point you in the right direction. You can have a better understanding on who to talk to and what to look out for. And that's kind of why I work as financial aid as a veteran, because no one will ever care more about your benefits than you do. And hopefully I can help you, give you a push in the right direction. And I also want to acknowledge this, right? The truth is that many student veterans may never want to identify as a veteran on campus for many reasons, and may not see resource centers as a place to go first glance. So when I say veteran, I'm also using it as an all-encompassing term, right? You could be a reservist, you could be a dependent of a veteran. Your military status may be very specific to you. And so we're using veteran education benefits, and we're particularly talking about the VA and financial aid, but know that there are other resources on campus at your university, possibly by using your FAFSA, the federal aid, the free application for federal student aid. Your state may have benefits, even if you may not be entitled to VA benefits yourself. So I just kind of want to acknowledge that as well. You may not see yourself as a veteran or what the VA defines as a veteran, but your university might, and there may be benefits for you there too. So please don't count yourself out. Know that there's a lot of choice. Part of the confusion is that there's a lot of choice available to you that you might not be aware of at, we call it institutions of higher learning. IHL is a VA term. So institution of higher learning means a college, university, or similar institution, including a technical or business school, offering post-secondary level academic instruction that leads to an associate or higher degree. So wherever you are in your journey, if you're transferring, if you haven't started yet, if you're at a 4-year, we're talking about you, okay? And I'm going to put a special note here, right? This is something that a lot of students don't know. Your state may have military-related education benefits. Every state has their own Department of Veteran Affairs, separate from the federal VA. So a student often will say, I have VA benefits, but also look into your state to see if they have some kind of education benefits related to you. Every state has them, Rhode Island, Maine, and I put California on here because I'm in California. California Department of Veteran Affairs is called CalVet for short. We have our own types of VA education benefits for military-related students. So Google your state Department of Veteran Affairs. You may often find education benefits there as well, separate from the federal VA. So I also kind of bring this up. So a student says, I have VA benefits, and they can mean anything, right? They can make state military education benefits, federal VA benefits. They can mean different chapters of the GI Bill, tuition assistance, which is a DoD program, or the ROTC program. So I really encourage students, like, own your benefits, own what they are, learn what the name is for them. This will help you immensely when you go to speak to someone, especially at your university, who may not have a very good idea of what kind of benefits are related to you, but they can point you in the right direction as long as you're using, the terminology, right? If it's VA, say VA. If it's a state military education benefit, say that. So just own that for yourself. I cannot emphasize that enough. Okay, so how to start. I kind of go over this, everybody's kind of different on their journey for higher ed. But where you start, everybody starts, is VA.gov. If you're a veteran who's out of service, and you're looking to see what kind of benefits that you can apply for, VA.gov is where you start. Now, they do have paper forms that you can turn in, but I don't think anybody recommends that anymore. Just too many delays. You're going to go online. It's a very simple online form, and you're going to get a certificate of eligibility from the VA saying, yes, you have benefits, or no, you do not, in about 30 to 45 days. I kind of want to make a special note because I don't know everybody's situation. I often deal with a lot of dependents, so spouses and children's veterans that are looking to use their VA benefits that they know they have. And I just want to emphasize, like, that's the DoD that transferred those benefits to you. You want to connect with the VA to start using your benefit. The Department of Defense, the DoD, and the VA do not speak to each other. So please don't assume that the VA will know that you have benefits. You have to apply for them, okay? Just want to emphasize that. And, think of the GI Bill as an umbrella term. And under it live all different types of benefits, like post 9/11 GI Bill. Because the post 9/11 GI Bill is well known, many people associate GI Bill with this one benefit type, but there are so many of them. And these are kind of the common ones that we see in our university. My UC Santa Barbara is a public state university. So we see all different types of education benefits, and these are the most common ones that we see for the VA and the DoD, which is the tuition assistance. But it says everything starts with a chapter. So much more than just post 9/11 GI Bill. And there's many more than just what I list here. And I highlighted some of the most common. What can it cover, right? That's another common question. And these are the kind of questions you want to ask. The VA can help answer these questions, and I'll show you how the university and the VA try to help answer this question for you, because they're very university and person specific. But these are like the basics, right? These are like at the 100% rate. These what they could cover. Chapter 35, right? These are kind of basics. What can they cover? What are they? This is a dependent of a veteran who has 100% service connected. If you don't know what 100% service connected is and you're a veteran, that is something that you can start looking into with the VA, with a state rep, VSO. I'd highly encourage that. Another common benefit type is Chapter 1606 for a reserve. And Chapter 31, Veteran Readiness and Employment. Chapter 31 is a very special type of benefit that can be used for education. And you also apply through it through the VA.gov, but your regional office and where you're located in your state is the one who processes these applications, and they'll interview you afterwards. You could do a whole webinar about Chapter 31, so I'll just touch on it just a little bit here. Just know that there is such thing, and please look into that if you are a service-connected veteran. Okay, so I also say, what is the school certifying official? So there's all these VA benefits available on campus to use. And the VA has a school certifying official is a VA term. It's an employee of an educational institution with the primary responsibility of certifying veteran enrollment at the educational institution. Okay. The hard part is finding who that person is, right? If your school is using VA benefits, they have to have a school certifying official. It's the law. But this may have a different title at your university, such as Veterans Benefits Officer, VA Certifying Official, Military Benefits Coordinator. They may be in Student Affairs or Financial Aid or the Registrar or Veteran Resource Center if you have one. There isn't a standard of what this person is called on campus or where they might be, but to find them, you can ask, who is the school certifying official for my veteran education benefits? Every school must have at least one. And I always suggest students that are looking for this person, go to the school website, search for veterans. They'll often find a contact there. Sometimes your college may have a director or coordinator of veteran military services who may also be a certifying official. The certifying official, why they're so important is because they will know what kinds of fees are covered at your university for the post 9/11 GI Bill or any part of the GI Bill, how to start your benefits. They may be able to tell you about any state benefits that you might be eligible for, or where they'll point you in the right direction on where to find them. You want to find this person, okay? They're incredibly helpful to you. At my university, I'm called the Veteran Affairs School Certifying Official, and I serve as the point of contact for financial aid office, and I'm a campus resource relating to veteran military education benefits for the veteran themselves or their family, which gives me particular, knowledge about financial aid. So a lot of veterans, I meet veterans every application cycle that are like, Marcee, I have 100% GI Bill and I have full 36 months and I'm coming to UCSB. And why would I ever need to file a FAFSA or apply for financial aid? Because I should be 100% covered. And it is so wrong. You are leaving money on the table if you do that. You're leaving support for you to live, to buy groceries, to commute. You're leaving money that you could get from the school to support you while you go to school, while you're using these benefits. So I tell students to file a FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. These is just kind of a rundown of what the FAFSA is if you're not familiar. It's free, it's easy, and even if you're going to a private or a public school, there's lots of aid available to you there, but you won't know that unless you file the FAFSA. You go through the process of filing. So I also get, I try to put common questions I get as a financial aid officer that just happens to do VA benefits, right? What's the deadline for filling out a FAFSA? Well, for this past year, we're in the current 22-23 academic year. And so the FAFSA opened on October 1st of 2021, and it won't close until June of 2023. So it's open for a very long time, which means that you can file a FAFSA for a very long time. Even if you're in school right now and you didn't file a FAFSA for this current academic year, you could still file a FAFSA, you could still get aid. The caveat is that many states have their own deadline of aid. So there's aid from the federal government, and there's aid from the state, and there's institutional aid from your university. Sometimes your state will have a deadline that's less than this federal deadline because they have limited funding, right? FAFSA has every state listed who has a different deadline on their website. For instance, in California, that priority deadline is March 2nd. Now, students who missed that deadline, you still want to file a FAFSA because there is aid out there for you, even if you miss the state deadline. And oftentimes, the university may have other ways of helping fund that money that you missed out from being late with the state. Okay, so FAFSA deadlines. They're long. File if you're going to school right now. So I also tell students this, okay, if you're thinking about applying for a university, you want to think about applying for your VA benefits and your FAFSA at the same time. So I always say start early. Is there a penalty if you apply for VA later? No, there isn't really a penalty. It's just you don't know how the school doesn't know you have VA. You're still trying to figure out where you're going to school, right? you can get this done when you're applying to universities. The VA will ask you what school you're going to, but it's for informational purposes mostly. You can use that certificate of eligibility that you get anywhere. You just want to start that process. And a good time I tell students is to start that when they're applying to the school. So FAFSA, you're going to apply to your school, you're going to file a FAFSA the next week, and you're going to apply for your VA benefits right after that. Okay, so what does your FAFSA do? So it's an application, and it gathers all this information that the school is going to use to put together a financial aid offer to you. It's going to have grants and scholarships and federal loans. CalVET fee tuition waiver is a state specific benefit, so ignore that if you're not in California. But it's only the school will know about the VA from you, the student, and it will eventually be added to your award letter. So FAFSA doesn't know that you're a veteran. Sometimes they'll ask you if you're a veteran to see if you're an independent or dependent student, which means that they're seeing if they need to include your parents' information. If you're a veteran, they don't. But sometimes you don't even get to that question because you're over 25, you have dependents of yourself. So sometimes it's okay if the FAFSA doesn't ask you if you're a veteran. But just know that if you have VA benefits or any state benefits from military education benefits, the FAFSA won't tell the school that. You have to tell the school that. So that's why I say file your FAFSA, then immediately file for your VA. You can receive both VA benefits and financial aid from the FAFSA, right? Your FAFSA, the application, it's sent to the school. Your school puts that package together. They can also add your VA benefits in there. Now, federal aid, right? Your VA benefits won't affect federal aid. So if you have a need, you're going to have that put into a package for financial aid. Now, if you never filed a FAFSA, you're going to leave all that federal aid out there. You're never going to receive it because you never applied for it. And that's what I try to emphasize for students so much. You have different costs of attendance at the university. And so your FAFSA, the information that comes from the FAFSA is building, your budget and for the school and how much aid that you can get. And so it's really important that you file that because you're going to maximize the use of your military benefits in conjunction with any type of federal or state or university aid you may be eligible for. Okay, so the next part of this is kind of like, how does the university and the VA tell you how much money to expect, right? Because that's a question I get a lot. There's a couple of different ways that they do this. There's new legislation that once you get admitted to a university, if you're using the post 9/11 GI Bill, you're going to get what's called a college financial plan. Now, this is something the Office of Education uses. It's pretty streamlined for every college has it. It will give you a summary of types of aids and scholarships, and it will tell you how much of your VA benefits you can be used at the university. The unfortunate thing is that it's an estimate, right? It doesn't really, your financial aid may vary, and it doesn't really say how the VA and your financial aid work together, but it does give you some kind of idea, right? The next way that you can do that, some universities will have a veterans benefit estimator. They'll give you information upfront as soon as you're admitted, saying, well, if you have this eligibility level, this is what you can expect to pay here at this university. They may have something like that specific to university. The GI Bill comparison tool, right? If you look up your university, if you can use VA at your university or college or institution of higher learning will be on the GI Bill comparison tool. And you can, this one has San Diego, you can lock that in and see what you can expect to get paid, not only for tuition and fees, but also for your monthly housing stipend. But the best way to see often is in your financial aid award letter. So your financial aid award letter, you're going to get this as soon as you're admitted to your university. Your financial aid award letter comes directly after that. Now, like I said, it's up to you to let the school know if you have VA benefits or any state military related benefits. So you may not see this on your financial aid award letter as soon as you're admitted. However, as early as you tell them, they start putting that VA information into your financial aid award. They start adjusting your award letter to give you a better idea about what you can expect, how much you can expect from the VA, how much you can expect from the university, how much you can expect from the state. So that's why I say the earlier you apply for your VA benefits with your FAFSA, the better for you, because then you have a better idea of how your aid's going to work for you. And everybody's going to be different depending on what kind of aid they have. Okay. So when we talk about financial aid, and I put UCSB up here for review, but one thing we talk about is cost of attendance, right? How much does it cost and what kind of fees can the VA pay for you? And the thing I want to emphasize here is that it's not just tuition and fees, right? We could say, oh, the VA will pay this, they'll pay tuition, they'll pay campus-based fee, they'll pay your health insurance, they'll pay this, they'll pay $18,000 for the whole academic year. But there's much more that goes into your budget than just tuition and fees. There's in your cost of attendance, right? There's housing costs and phone costs and commuter costs and all kinds of health care costs that go into this budget, right? So if you're only thinking about your GI Bill covering tuition and fees, you're missing out on other financial aid that can be used for books and supplies on top of your military benefits. Okay, so another financial aid award letter. I talk about this, I'll talk about it's called a VACA waiver, the non-resident fee waiver. And I'll go back into this in a little bit. Okay, so maximizing your benefits. How can you maximize your benefits? You have VA benefits, you submitted your FAFSA, now what, right? What are the tips that you can have? So how do you use yellow ribbon and the non-resident fee waiver called the VACA waiver, rate of pursuit, and school programs and VA work study. I kind of put that at the end just so you know that they're there for you. Okay. Speak to your financial aid office or your SEO at your school. I cannot emphasize this enough, right? Go find who your SEO is. And then often your SEO or your director or the coordinator from Veteran Military Services, if they're not a one-stop shop in their own department, they will have a contact at each department on the university, right? UCSB is a 20,000 plus student university. We're a big university. There's lots of different departments. Our team here has contacts in most every department that they can point that know veterans and military connected students that can help you specifically. So connect with your SEO or your director or coordinator and have them point you to the financial aid office. There's someone there that will help you. And just to know, like, the VA or your state cannot tell you how your benefits work on campus, especially with other financial aid. Only your financial aid office can. Okay, that's why it's really important to get a hold of the right person. Appeal your FAFSA, okay? And I cannot tell you this enough. If you're just coming off of, the FAFSA will ask you a series of questions. They'll ask you questions about what's happening now, what happened a year ago, but you're also going to upload your tax return in there. And that tax return is old. It's for the 22-23 academic year, they use the old 2020 tax return. Now, why do they do that? Well, it's because they're using a snapshot of what they can expect that you're making every year. So if you're a veteran student now, but 2 years ago in 2020, you were on active duty, that snapshot is going to be wrong because you're no longer on active duty. So you're going to appeal your FAFSA. Why is that important? Because it's FAFSA uses what they call expected family contribution. How much money did you make in that year that you submitted your tax return to determine how much aid you're going to get now? And so if they're determining that off of your military pay, or let's say you had a job while you were taking community college, now you're transferring, you no longer have that job, you're going to appeal your FAFSA. You're going to look for a family contribution appeal it, because you're going to get more financial aid. Appeal, appeal, appeal. If you don't remember anything from what I said today, you're going to appeal your FAFSA, okay? VACA and yellow ribbon. Okay, so there's a lot of confusion on what these are. Yellow ribbon. There's a new legislation out that kind of made yellow ribbon a moot point in public university. So when we talk about yellow ribbon, if you see anything about yellow ribbon, we're talking about private universities, folks, and it's not guaranteed, right? So the university has to enter into a contract with the VA saying yes, or with the DoD saying yes, we're gonna pay for. It's the price of tuition that goes over the amount the VA will pay every year. You can only qualify it if you have 100% benefit level, and if you run out of GI Bill benefits, then you can no longer be eligible for the yellow ribbon. So it's not a guarantee that you have it. It's not a guarantee that your school has it. And even if your school does have yellow ribbon, your program may not be eligible for it. It kind of depends on the school. The school has a lot of say on how that goes. But if you're a non-resident, the VACA waiver is a non-resident fee waiver. So if you're using pretty much any chapter of the GI Bill, including Chapter 35 or dependent, this is the legislation here, because please don't take my word for this, look this up. If you separated from the military or you're a dependent of someone who did, and you have these benefits, you can't be charged a non-resident fee at the public university you're going to, which is huge, right? This is the base standard for the federal government. Now, your state may have rules about residency. They may waive your residency if you're a veteran military dependent anyway, but some states like California do not. So having your GI Bill or having any portion of the GI Bill, any chapter of it, is super important, because you'll waive that non-resident waiver, or you'll waive that non-resident fee, which is an additional money on your tuition. So yellow ribbon and the VACA waiver both help cover fees outside of what the VA will pay for tuition. Rate of pursuit in the GI Bill. Okay, so oftentimes when we're talking about the VA and we're talking about financial aid, sometimes the VA is what we call a last payer, right? So let's say that a student, the VA could pay, $5,000 a quarter for this student, but maybe they're only paying $600 because that student has other financial aid that will help cover what the VA would have covered. And they're getting additional aid on top of that. So it's really to your benefit to apply, but the VA is only paying a very small portion, plus they're paying your housing, right? Then it's time to consider rate of pursuit. Now, a lot of times there's a lot of veterans that will transfer, and you have some have 36 months, some may have 48, depending on if they move benefits around. But sometimes it doesn't always cover your whole education, right? So this is where you start talking about, and you have 120 credits. Most universities, that's not going to cover your whole 4 years, even if you don't transfer. So people say take more than 12 units, but that's awesome because you'll get through your course quicker. Some offers say take 15 units. It helps you keep going with your GI Bill and it helps you graduate on time. This is one that probably a lot of people won't tell you about. Consider certifying at 3/4 time. So you're a full-time student. Let's say you're taking 12 units at your university, which is full-time. It's full-time here at UC. It might be full-time somewhere else where you're at. And you're getting charged a flat rate fee. University, a lot of universities consider themselves a flat rate fee. So if you're taking full-time units, you're going to get charged the same fee. And so you can be asked to be certified less than full-time. What does that do? Well, if you're a flat rate fee university, it's going to pay your tuition and fees outright. It's going to reduce how much you get for housing, but it's going to extend your benefit life. So instead of the VA will take chunks out, like if you have a 12 weeks, let's say you're a 12-week term. If you're going at 100% rate, they take 12 weeks out of your 36 months. But if you're going 3/4 time, they're only taking 75% of that 12 weeks out of your 36 months. So it's a long-term, this is something you want to talk to with your school certifying official. I'm just putting it out there. There's a lot of like, how does this work? What can I expect to get paid? those are all questions for your SEO. Just know that you have the option to certify for less and extend out your benefit time. It's a long-term option, but could be beneficial for you, especially if you're switching between schools. You switch, you coming back to school after switching a major that didn't work out. It is an option for you to have a lot of choice in how you use your benefit. Okay, and here's rate of pursuit. The VA has this on their website, right? What is full-time? What is three-quarter time? What is half-time? So you want to talk to your SEO about this. Your SEO knows about this. You want to talk to them and bring it up, rate of pursuit, and how to extend your benefit. It's not something they may bring up to you. I talked about the GI Bill comparison tool. Okay, school programs and VA work study. Know that if you have GI Bill benefits, any GI Bill benefits, you're available to work VA work study. I put the California amount in here, but basically they either pay you the federal minimum wage or the state minimum wage, whatever is higher, and you can apply for VA work study while you're using your benefits. So it's extra money in your pocket, and you usually get to help out other military connected students on campus. Veteran resource centers are usually on campus, and there's all types of on and off campus resources that students may not even know what to look for. So connect with your SEO on campus, connect with the Veteran Military Resource Center if you have one. They'll be able to point you in the right direction and how to use your benefits and other resources that help maximize your use of benefits while on campus. Okay, that's all I got. Any questions that I can help answer, or Annie, I will send this back to you if you like.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much. That was a lot of information.
Yeah.
So let's see. What the first question that we had was, does this process change at all if you are going to school online? So is it different for like an in-person option or?
The process for like how to get your benefits? I'm curious what the user was asking. I mean, if you're going to school strictly online, it may change how much money the VA will pay for like housing benefits if it's strictly online. But the whole idea about submitting your FAFSA, filing for financial aid, and how that works with VA benefits, that wouldn't change if you're strictly an online school. Just sometimes the amount of money the VA will pay for housing, if we're talking about post 9/11 GI Bill, that might change. Other types of GI Bill benefits, those won't change for online school necessarily. Every benefit's a little bit different. So that's why I say kind of even online schools, if they're accepting VA benefits, they have an SCO, they have a school certifying official somewhere there. So you want to connect with your point of contact and ask them who that is. You can ask them specifically, and they can tell you about that for that university or college or wherever you're going.
That's good. That's good advice. And I have a follow-up here. Is it possible or is it advised to contact like an SCO to a school that you're planning to apply to, or does that help at all? It's sort of the same way that you might reach out to an admissions officer before you've applied to that school.
Yeah, and it happens all the time, right? We can't, often SCOs aren't in admission, so we can't often give you advice about how to apply to the school or what to expect, but we can definitely tell you how your benefits work here and what to expect. And then ask them specifically, like if they have a preferred timeline when they want you to send in your information, because the VA will say whenever, your state may say this time, but your school is the one that's putting this all together for you. So ask them, like, is there a timeline? What do you need from me? Where do I submit it at, right? What can I expect? Those are all questions that, we can answer at the university level. And then you're already making that connection, and we can always point you in the right direction to another campus resource if we can't answer it.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, so we do have quite a few. Here's one about a memo was sent out earlier this year in regards to DD214 release for active duty Navy. Some are waiting up to 24 months for that important document. Is there another way to activate benefits without the DD214?
Yeah, so, I mean, the VA has record of your release, right? It's all like on the back end, when you're talking about being released from active duty and you're applying for your VA benefits, the fact that you don't have your DD214 isn't going to affect if you're eligible for VA benefits, right? If you don't physically have your DD214, that's not going to stop you from using VA, right? They're going to give you a certificate of eligibility. You're going to take that to you're on file somewhere that you've been discharged, right? On the back end, right, from the DOD, they're going to check their records. They're going to look at the VA. I don't know all the specifics of where they check and what they look at, but you're going to get that certificate of eligibility mailed to you from the VA. The school, I want to emphasize here, the school does not have the VA does not contact the school whatsoever. So it's really dependent on the student to get this information. And you're going to take that to the school, to the SDO, or whatever contact that you found at the school that will point you in the direction of the SDO and say, I want to start using my benefits, right? When it comes to like, who is a veteran, how to identify as a veteran on campus, the school may ask you for a DD214 if you're not using benefits, or if you have a CAT card or orders. Some universities are very flexible in how they give out veteran designation for things like priority housing, priority registration that have nothing to do with VA benefits. So those are kind of conversations that you want to have too. Maybe you don't have VA benefits. How do I identify if I don't have a DD214? A lot of universities are flexible with that, especially when you have a DD214 delay. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so here's another one. How different is the amount of support you get between being active duty versus being in the National Guard, and does that matter?
Amount of support from, I'm guessing you're talking about like military related education benefits. So I could tell you that, right, it depends on the branch of service, right? How much time that they're asking you to serve to get to activate your education benefits. Some reservists get post 9/11 GI Bill, some don't. Some get what's called Montgomery GI Bill 1606 for reservists, some don't. Some National Guard and state guards have their own education benefits. So it kind of depends. You want to talk to if you're in the National Guard right now, you want to talk to your education liaison. If you have one in your command or on your base, everybody has some kind of education liaison. Even if they're not on their base, they can point you in the right direction of a point of contact to ask these education related questions about what are my benefits, right? And how can I use them, right? The university can't tell you what you're eligible for. It can only tell you how it works at the university. Your branch of service is the one who tells you you're eligible for what. And the VA is another part of that, saying they verify, oh yes, they are eligible for this. But it really starts with your point of contact at your command if you're currently a reservist, National Guard, or active duty. It's a lot. I mean, it's confusing. I know that there's like multi-tiered layers where you go, but you start with your command, then the VA, then the university. We all try to work together.
Okay. Another question: after admission and the financial aid letter, how do you communicate that you have VA benefits? Is there anything additional that you have to do, or?
Yeah. Yes. So usually it happens kind of really quickly. You're admitted, you get a financial aid award letter, probably either with admission or maybe in the next week you get one. And if you've never turned in any certificate, it's called Certificate of Eligibility, that's the VA term. If you'd never turned that in, let's say you applied on VA.gov, you got the Certificate of Eligibility, that's it. Only you and the VA know that, right? The school does not know that. So as soon as you're admitted, you want to turn in that Certificate of Eligibility to your school. Now, like I said, it's your school certifying official who collects those and processes those. And eventually, if they're not in financial aid like me, they're going to go to financial aid to be part of your award package, and they'll regenerate that and spit that back out to you, right? But you really want to connect with someone on campus. I tell students, like, Google veterans, Google, University of Nebraska veterans, and you'll find a contact on there and just say, hey, I'm reaching out now. I'm planning on admission. I want to know who I contact once I get my Certificate of Eligibility, and they'll tell you.
Got it. Okay. You mentioned something about being after you're 25 for the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Does that affect benefits if you are older than 25?
No. So FAFSA is asking you questions about to determine if you're an independent or dependent student. Dependent students are 25 or less than 25 or less. They they need to have their parents' tax information on the FAFSA to determine aid. It's not a benefit to you as an independent student. You're going to be an independent student because you're a veteran, but they ask you, it's a skip logic now, FAFSA. So sometimes they don't even get to the question, are you a veteran? They'll ask if you've been in foster care over 13, if you have a dependent of your own, if you're over 25, those things will be asked usually first. And if you can't say yes to any of those, then they'll ask you, are you a veteran? And that will get you independent status, which is good. That's what you want. You don't want to put your parents' tax information on the FAFSA.
Right. Okay, and regarding housing, if you decide to live on campus, how does that affect your housing stipend?
It doesn't. So your housing for, okay, so if we're talking about post 9/11 GI Bill, your monthly housing stipend is based off the zip code where the university is located, not you necessarily, but where your university is, and it's based off an E5 BAH with dependents. So if you go on the DoD website, you type in the zip code of your university and you look for the E5 with dependents pay, that's how much you can expect per month. Other GI Bill chapters like Chapter 35 or Chapter 1606, they'll have like a national rate depending on how many units you're taking. So if you're taking full-time units, this is how much you can expect, right? Housing's also like that for the GI Bill. It's also dependent on if you're going full-time, and it can be less if you go less than full-time. But like at the 100% rate, it's an E5 with dependents for the zip code of where your school's located. That's also something the GI Bill comparison tool can tell you as well. But I always look at the DoD website for BAs because that's updated more often.
Okay. Is it possible to use chapters 31 and 33 together?
You can't. So using them together, you can be eligible for them both. You just can't draw them both at the same time. Does that make sense? Right? Like I can't have post 9/11 GI Bill and use that for fall quarter and also use chapter 31. It wouldn't make sense once you learn what they are, because they're kind of similar, but you can't use them at the same time. The only benefit that you can use, well, some students will have, like, they're dependent that also had post 9/11 and chapter 35. They'll augment, they'll say, okay, fall, I want to use chapter 33, then I want to use chapter 35. They'll do that. But that's something you want to talk to your SEO about. But generally, no, 33 and 31 you can't use together, but you can be eligible for both and then use them one after the other. And that's something that when you apply for chapter 31, you want to talk to your counselor about, right? You want to say, oh, I have this much time left. How is that going to be used going forward? Because the laws keep changing about that, and they would have the most information about, how to best use that in the future. What is chapter 31? So
Okay.
And I just thought that popped up.
Yeah, we just had a follow up. What exactly is entailed in chapter 31?
So chapter 31 it used to be called vocational rehabilitation. It's veteran readiness and employment, VRE for short. It's the VA will say it's not an education benefit, it's an employment benefit. It's for veterans that have a service-connected disability. If you're still in active duty service, you want to be talking, you're about ready to leave. You want to be talking about, how to file VA claims for disability, for service-connected injuries, mental health, things like that, right? And so this is a specific program for veterans that have the service-connected disability. It can help fund education, kind of like the chapter 33 post 9/11 GI Bill can, but there's extras that go along with that. And so when you apply for it, for chapter 31, you apply on VA.gov, and then you are assigned a counselor in your area to then go over to see if you're eligible and to ask questions, more in-depth questions about what it is and what it can do for you.
Okay.
There's not a lot online about it. There's very basic stuff online about it, but they want you to talk. They want you to apply and then talk to somebody specific in your regional, they're called VA regional offices.
Okay. Okay. A question about the Yellow Ribbon program. Does it work for active duty going for their doctorate level degree, or is it just for undergraduate?
It depends on it depends, right? Like yellow ribbon is not a guarantee whatsoever, even if the school has yellow ribbon funding. So you need to, if you have a program in mind, you want to reach out to that school, and usually their financial aid office is the one that's administering yellow ribbon, and ask them, like, can I use it for this program? I'm active duty. Can I use it for this? Like, you want to ask them those specific questions, because it's very dependent on the school. And sometimes yellow ribbon doesn't cover all the additional costs. If you're going to a private institution, it will cover like maybe half of it or a quarter of it. It just depends on what that school agreement is with the DoD. So you want to ask them specifically about your program, your level, undergraduate or graduate, and then what you can expect from that school.
Okay. One question here is about, does the VA pay the school directly for housing? And I guess that could be true for any of their benefits. How does it come off the total cost of attendance, I guess?
Yeah, so I think schools are getting, and legislation has changed recently, and schools are getting more direction on what to put on financial aid award packages, but to give veterans and their dependents more access to what's actually being paid by the VA. But so tuition and fees, anything tuition and fees specific, the VA is paying the school directly. It's going through your financial aid office, it's getting onto your billing account, it's being applied there. Housing and books are going directly to the student. And that's when you sign up on VA.gov, they have a direct deposit that's going to you. So I meet a lot of students that have no idea what they're getting, right? And so I tell them, okay, sign up on VA.gov for an online profile. You'll see when your checks are coming and how much you're being paid for housing. Connect with your financial aid office, look at your financial aid award letter. If you gave them your certificate of eligibility, your VA benefits for tuition and fees will be on there. And then make sure you're logging into your billing. Billing and financial aid are separate at most universities. So you want to look at like what you're being billed and how the VA, that's what the VA is paying. You'll see that on there. And if that matches up to your financial aid award, because you want to have conversations, meaningful conversations with these people about, okay, then I could say, how is this being used here at my university? But housing and books, that will come directly to you. And often your school doesn't have any information about that. So you got to use both VA and the school to figure out what's being paid to you.
Okay. We have just a couple more. So we have a question about the CSS profile. So that's another financial aid application that we haven't addressed, but is that something that is factored into, well, how does it work with FAFSA and your VA benefits? Can you tell us a little bit more about the CSS profile in general?
I mean, it's another type of financial aid application, right? Schools can choose what types of applications that they use. That's another one. So it's similar into the fact where you're applying. It depends on like what school. I mean, the FAFSA is a more highly used one, I would say. It's more, I don't know. There's a lot more information about that. But the CSS profile, if your school uses, it depends on how, like sometimes schools are using different profiles, but they're having you apply through FAFSA. It's just like, it's dependent on the school, right? So I just say whatever application that your school, if it's not, whatever application your school is saying, hey, apply this for financial aid, right? That's what you want to be doing, that with your VA benefits, because you're going to be getting more aid. Like the VA may pay less, right? They may say, hey, you're getting aid for tuition. We're only going to pay a small part of your fee. But totality, you're getting more aid. I promise you that, especially if you're a veteran who's an independent student, which you will be. And you appeal your financial aid, and say, hey, I'm not making that money from 2 years ago. I'm making zero, or making much less, right? Not a lot of students know that. And your financial aid office isn't always going to tell you that, because they have so many students to go through.
Right. Yeah, and I do just want to add that, like you said, not every school requires a CSS profile. most of the schools that do require it are private colleges, and you need to have it in order to be eligible for financial aid, just like the FAFSA. So I'm sure that they take into account everything. The CSS profile is a little bit more detailed. It's a little bit more, it can be a little bit more invasive, but generally, if your school requires it, the ones that you're applying to, then you have to submit it.
It's not in your detriment. A lot of veterans who
Right.
don't know will get upset saying, okay, well, the VA was going to pay $5,000 a quarter. Now they're only paying $1,000 because I have other financial aid. Like what the heck's going on? And it really is, you're getting more aid totality. It's just
Right.
the VA is the last payer, so they're going to save some money for them. But for you, you're getting more money in your financial aid award letter. Does that make sense? It's like a hard thing to get used to, but if you have financial aid, they can break it down for you. Like, this is what you were getting, and now you're getting much more, right?
Right. Well, those are all of our questions. I just want to highlight that what I heard as a participant was be proactive. So reach out, talk, and in addition to being proactive, communicate, right? So Marcee and I work at university, I worked at university, Marcee works at university. So we know that there's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces, and they don't necessarily all talk in the same language or at the same time to each other. So I appreciate that, all applicants should be proactive, should communicate between the VA and their school and everybody else in order to make the most of their benefits. So do you have anything else that you'd like to add, Marcee, before we close up?
Yeah, just that's key. That's what I tell anybody who's thinking about going to any university or whatever. Let somebody know. I mean, it's hard because veterans have a hard time sometimes identifying themselves as veterans, maybe because they're discharged, or maybe because they didn't serve the whole time, or they're, whatever they are feeling about their service. Let somebody know on campus that you served. They will get you the resources or someone to talk to point in the right, even if you don't have VA benefits. There may be something on campus, priority registration, priority housing, that you can take advantage of, even if you don't really feel that comfortable identifying as a veteran yourself. All right. Tell somebody, get on an email list. They want to help people. Okay.
Right.
I couldn't say anything to just say that.
Yes, absolutely. There are resources out there that are for you. You should use them. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Marcee. As I said, this webinar is recorded and will be sent to you in a few days. If you have questions for Marcee, she shared her contact information earlier, and you can always reach out to Service to School and we can point you in her direction as well. Just want to thank all of you for coming here tonight. And again, thank you, Marcee.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.